often see public figures living these, seemingly perfect lives, all glamour.
Right, bathed in that spotlight.
But beneath all that, there's this truth you just can't ignore. Health problems don't care who you are. Fame, fortune, none of it matters.
Doesn't make you immune, no.
And it's in those moments, those really vulnerable times, that you find these incredibly powerful human stories. Sometimes heartbreaking, sure, but always about resilience.
Absolutely. Deeply human.
So our deep dive today is all about that. We're looking into some recent, very open health revelations from well-known people.
Yeah, exploring how things like sudden diagnoses or accidents or even those long-term chronic issues have really shaped their lives.
And our goal here, our mission, is to pull out some key insights, maybe some universal truths from these really personal accounts, basically giving you a shortcut to understanding health, human strength, and how people navigate these huge, unexpected challenges.
And the information we're digging into, it comes from recent news interviews, sources giving us those firsthand details about what these people have actually been through.
Okay, let's jump right in then. The first one, maybe the most recent and really impactful story we found, is Eric Dane. His candid share about his ALS diagnosis.
Mm-hmm. A very powerful revelation.
It really is. This just came out, a couple of months ago?
Yeah. And what's so striking about his story is how just one moment, one really devastating experience can just crystallize how severe a condition is, not just for him, but for his whole family.
Right.
And for anyone who doesn't know ALS, Lou Gehrig's disease, it's a neurodegenerative condition. It basically attacks the nerves that control your voluntary muscles. It's progressive, relentless.
And in that moment he described on Good Morning America, talking with Diane Sawyer back in June, just 2 months after the diagnosis, it's just heartbreaking.
What happened?
He was snorkeling, and he said he suddenly realized with this terrifying clarity that he couldn't swim. He couldn't generate enough power to get back to the boat.
Wow. Imagine that feeling.
I know. And one of his daughters, Billy, or Georgia, their teams, she had to help him back. He said he just broke down in tears right there, realized he was, quote, not safe in the water anymore.
God, that's the kind of moment that just changes everything, doesn't it? It forces this immediate confrontation with a totally new reality.
Yeah.
It takes the diagnosis off the paper and makes it brutally real. And for his daughters, too, I mean, a sudden shift in their role. It shows how that vulnerability just ripples through a family.
He admitted, since the diagnosis, he thinks about those 3 letters, ALS, every day. The second I wake up, he said, he's already lost function in his dominant right hand, starting to lose it in his left. But his mindset, despite knowing it's incurable, it's just incredibly powerful.
What's he say?
He said, I don't think this is the end of my story, and I'm fighting as much as I can. And his goals now, so simple, so basic. All I want to do is spend time with my family and work a little if I can.
That really speaks volumes.
It does. And we also heard his wife, Rebecca Gayhart. They'd filed for divorce, but she dismissed that back in March, she's his biggest champion. He said they'd become better friends and better parents.
His perspective really shows something profound about resilience. When you face that kind of physical decline, your purpose often shifts, doesn't it? Back to connection, to just being present.
Yeah.
It's not just coping for him. It's like a blueprint for finding meaning when your capabilities change dramatically. Finding control in the uncontrollable.
That's a great way to put it. Okay, so shifting gears from those sort of longer-term battles. Let's talk about the sudden shocks, the things that strike out of nowhere.
Right. Demanding immediate action. It's a real contrast to a progressive diagnosis like ALS.
Totally different.
And these next stories, they highlight a different kind of strength, maybe, the kind you need right in that moment of trauma or, some internal crisis.
Exactly.
They show how fast life can change from outside factors or something sudden inside.
Yeah.
And the immediate psychological hit, too, even if the physical recovery is quick.
Like Christy Carlson Romano. Remember her story from February this year?
Vaguely. Refresh my memory.
She was on a shooting trip, and a fragment from a clay pigeon hit her in the face, less than an inch from her right eye.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. And the fragment, it's still there, behind her eye. Too risky to remove.
Wow. Can she... okay.
Thankfully, yes, her vision's normal. But she said, I saw my life flash before my eyes. Just immense gratitude to be alive.
I can only imagine. That's terrifying.
And then there was Casey Fitzgerald, the AHL player. Back in December 2024, cut in the neck by another player's skate blade during a game.
Ooh, skate cuts are always scary.
Right. Needed 25 stitches.
Yeah.
His dad just said they were very lucky it wasn't worse.
Definitely lucky.
And Adam Devine talking in 2025 about injuries he still deals with from when he was hit by a cement truck at age 11.
Still, after all that time.
Yeah, he said he has spasms all over, and even that doctors told him within this last year that he was dying. Though the context on that last part wasn't fully clear.
That's intense. These stories really hammer home how fragile we are. Devine's situation decades later, or Romano's near miss.
Right.
It shows how 1 second can just echo through your whole life, physically and mentally. And Christy's gratitude, that's often a sign of, like, a psychological reset after facing mortality, right? Refocusing on what matters.
For sure. And sometimes the sudden emergencies come from inside, not just accidents. Like Brian Austin Green.
What happened with him?
April 2025, he revealed he'd had surgery for a perforated appendix. Said it was just before bursting. His first major surgery, apparently. Called it not an easy process.
Appendix issues can get serious fast.
Totally. And then Matt Kirschenheiter, Gina Kirschenheiter's ex, had a heart attack in March 2025. Thankfully, he survived.
Goodness, heart attacks are no joke.
No. And remember Tracy Morgan? That scare at the Knicks game back in March?
Oh, yeah, he was wheeled out, right. People were worried.
Exactly. But turned out it was just food poisoning. He jumped on social media pretty quick to say he was okay, just recovering.
Ah, okay. Well, that's better than the alternatives people were probably thinking.
Definitely.
You know, what's interesting about these internal things is the range. Life-threatening emergencies like a burst appendix or heart attack versus something scary but ultimately quick to recover from, like Tracy's food poisoning.
True.
It just shows how unpredictable our own bodies can be. And Tracy Morgan's quick update, that also says something about how public figures have to manage the narrative now, right? Control the story fast.
Good point. Okay, so moving from those sudden physical events, let's get into maybe the most complex system, the brain and nervous system.
Ah, yes. Neurological conditions, strokes.
What do these stories tell us about vulnerability, but also maybe astonishing resilience?
Well, the common thread is definitely the huge, often life-changing impact on the brain or nerves, but also the incredible variety in how these things happen and how people recover. It shows the brain's fragility, absolutely, but also its amazing ability to adapt.
Definitely. Look at Amelia Clark. She wrote that essay back in 2019.
About the aneurysms, yeah.
Right. Subarachnoid hemorrhage, a life-threatening stroke, immediate surgery, unbearable pain, even aphasia, where she was muttering nonsense.
Just awful.
And then a second aneurysm grew, needed another surgery in 2013, which failed, led to a massive bleed, needed a third operation, this time through her skull.
Unbelievable. And yet?
And yet she says now she's 100% incredible.
Truly incredible resilience.
Then you have Jamie Foxx, April 2023. Severe headache, then he just went out. Doesn't remember 20 days.
20 days, wow.
Yeah. Apparently, he was sent home by a doctor initially, but his sister, Deidre Dixon, knew something was wrong, drove him to a hospital, diagnosed with a brain bleed that caused a stroke.
Thank goodness for his sister.
Actually, he woke up in a wheelchair, couldn't walk, went through rehab, credits prayers for his recovery.
Another intense journey back.
And then there are the Biebers.
Yeah.
Haley, back in March 2022. Stroke-like symptoms at breakfast with Justin. Facial drooping, couldn't speak.
Scary stuff. What was it?
A TIA, a transient ischemic attack, caused by a small blood clot in her brain. Later found out she had a PFO, a small hole in her heart, which let the clot travel to her brain.
Ah, the PFO connection.
Right. She had surgery to close it. Says she's feeling great now.
Good for her.
And then Justin himself, just a few months later, June 2022, Ramsay Hunt syndrome.
That caused facial paralysis, right?
Yeah, temporary paralysis. Attacked nerves in his ear and face. One eye wouldn't blink, couldn't smile on one side, couldn't move his nostril. Said it got progressively harder to eat.
That must have been frightening. For a performer, especially.
For sure. But thankfully, the paralysis went away. He's totally okay now.
Another recovery story.
And one more here. Snoop Dogg's daughter, Corey Broaddus. January 2024, suffered a severe stroke.
Oh, wow. How is she?
She said her family came to my rescue, had a longer hospital stay because her lupus flared up, affecting her kidneys too.
Oh.
But she says she's doing great now, worked on motor skills.
That's a lot to deal with all at once.
It really is.
You know, looking at all these neurological stories, It's the sheer variety that's striking. A heart defect causing a clot, a virus causing paralysis, aneurysms, brain bleeds from unknown causes.
Yeah, completely different origins.
Exactly. And the recovery paths are just as varied. It really highlights neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to rewire and heal, sometimes against incredible odds. Plus, the huge role of rehab, medical help, and just sheer personal will.
Absolutely. Okay, let's turn now to stories that are more about the long game, maybe with chronic conditions or that often frustrating journey just to get a diagnosis.
Right, the persistence required.
What do these tell us about maybe self-advocacy and just keep it going?
Well, these stories really put a spotlight on the diagnostic challenges people face and the kind of constant, often invisible work it takes to manage a chronic illness day to day.
Yeah.
And they definitely show that strong link between physical symptoms and your mental state, especially when you can't get answers.
For sure. Like Amy Schumer. January 2025, people commented online about her face looking puffier during press events.
I remember seeing headlines about that.
Yeah, and some commenters, even doctors apparently, suggested Cushing's syndrome, which is about excess cortisol.
And were they right?
Turns out, yes, in a way.
Yeah.
It prompted her to figure out it was likely caused by steroid injections she'd been getting for scars from breast reduction and a C-section.
Ah, so medically induced Cushing's.
Exactly. She said she was relieved it was the kind that will just work itself out and that she's healthy. But it shows how public chatter, even online comments, can sometimes lead to an answer.
That's a weirdly modern twist on getting a diagnosis.
Isn't it? Then there's Jason Tartick. March 2025, crazy back pain after an RV trip, said he was crawling on all fours into the hospital.
Ouch! What was the issue?
Details weren't fully clear, but he went from squatting nearly 300 pounds to not being able to do a bodyweight squat on one foot.
Yeah.
So I felt like I had a stroke or something.
That's a drastic change.
Totally. But he's seeing a specialist, getting steroids, said he's on the mend. It highlights how even fit people aren't immune to debilitating pain, and how jarring that loss of function can be.
Yeah, the mental side of physical limitation.
And finally, Shailene Woodley. She talked about this in September 2024, a decade-long health battle in her early 20s.
A whole decade? What was going on?
It sounded awful. Losing my hearing, couldn't walk for longer than 5 minutes, everything I ate hurt my stomach, just constant physical distress.
And finding answers.
It was a long road. She saw MDs, but also independent kind of healers. And she talked about how the physical stuff led to, her words, mental fickery, body dysmorphia, confusion about who she was.
That sounds incredibly difficult. Is she okay now?
Yes, she said she's very healthy now. But her story, that long, winding path to figuring things out, what does that tell you about the patient experience?
Oh, it says so much. Shailene's decade really shows that exhausting, often unseen effort of just being a patient, right? You have to advocate for yourself relentlessly. Listen to your body is just step one.
Right. And it often means exploring all kinds of options, traditional medicine and otherwise. Her experience also really underscores that deep, often brutal connection between physical pain and mental health when you don't have answers. Healing isn't just physical, it's mental too.
So true. And that really wraps up our look at these stories. You know, this deep dive, it's shown so clearly how health challenges hit everyone, famous or not.
Yeah, no exceptions.
From Eric Dane's courageous fight with ALS, forcing him to rethink life's purpose, to those sudden shocks like Christy Carlson Romano's accident or Brian Austin Green's appendix.
Highlighting that fragility.
Exactly. And the complex brain issues for Amelia Clark, the Biebers, showing that mix of mystery and resilience. And then the long journeys like Amy Schumer finding answers unexpectedly or Shailene Woodley's persistence. It all points to vulnerability, yes, but also amazing strength.
And the power of support systems. You see that again and again.
Definitely. And the need to fight for your own health answers. You know, what really stands out is how sharing these stories, often in such raw detail, actually helps. It fuels a bigger conversation about being sick, about recovery, about what a full life even